So how have students responded to group assignments?
When they first respond, they go, it's going to be my grade. And so having the same grade, having that happen, they hate it. They absolutely hate it.
Mm-hmm.
However, once they get into recording Big Blue Button and they see each other and they respect each other, then it changes. And especially when you build in, okay, now you got to build your norms in there. You need to have some rules what your group's going to follow.
Okay.
And that changes the dynamics. Now we're on an even playing field. And so they follow those rules. I actually have them recite those rules at the beginning. And at the end, they have to recite them again to make sure that somebody didn't, put them down during their group project. And they have due dates that they expect the projects to be done by so that they can turn them into me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at the start, nervous. And then at the end, I've seen them carry on, like using the conference materials, carrying it on to other faculty's classes.
So you have them storm and norm and set the norms for the group.
Correct.
Do you have them do any sort of icebreakers before they begin working together so they can kind of choose their groups or get to know each other more?
The way my classes are done, or the particular class, it's done more time-wise. So they say, again, they sign up themselves. I no longer sign them up into a group and say, hey, here's your group. They sign themselves up. There's not an icebreaker. Oh, that's a neat idea. I also put in there, okay, this group meets at this time. They like their homework due the day before an assignment. Or this group meets at this time, and they like their homework due an hour before it's due. And so it kind of helps those that are procrastinators and those that are worker bees and want to have it done the day before so they don't stress themselves out. With the self-sign-up, it's worked better than assigning them groups myself. You can hold them more accountable. It's like, well, this is the group you chose. In my rules, they cannot be in a group of one. There's no option. And some people say, I'd rather just do the assignment by myself. And I say, no, it's not going to happen.
Do you find certain sizes of groups work better?
The size that works best is going to be 4 or 5 students. Anything larger than that, then there's not enough work for everybody to do. I've had groups then all of a sudden they start out with 4 or 5 and they dwindle down to 2. So then I need to reassign them a group depending on where they're at in the quarter. For example, if they're first 3 weeks into the quarter and some people have dropped out because they don't want to be in groups, then I'll assign them to a new group and say, hey, this person's been assigned to your group. Welcome them, please. I have it in my syllabus that that's a possibility it could happen. And so, but 4 or 5 is a perfect size.
Yeah, and it seems like at 4 or 5, they're accountable to each other. You don't have the loafer effect, so where, hey, this group's doing their own thing, I can just sit back and get my group grade, right?
That's a good point. Actually, in this human relations book I use, what's neat is that they talk about the loafer, the person that's a talker that talks all the way through the groups. And so it's really good assessment for them to take. And they do that assessment at the end. And they say, okay, who was that person in your group?
Right.
I never thought of using it at the beginning because that would be actually fascinating.
It would be.
It'd be really fascinating. They do have to, what I have found the best exercise to work with in conferencing, they have to demonstrate to each other, and they record it, how to use Big Blue Button. Best assignment. Then they get all rid of the nerves. They show how to do the texting, how to raise the hand, how to mute somebody because there's just a dog in the background.
Right.
So,
the crying baby.
Yeah, exactly.
What is something you wished you had implemented when you first started using group assignments?
So the big part that I didn't do at the very start, and that is if somebody was missing in action and they were not there, that the group is just to go on without them. They've already said this is the time we're going to meet, this is the day we're going to meet, so they've met all that criteria. And if John's missing, they record without him, and his name doesn't go on the cover page, the cover sheet. John lost those points. Now, it used to be where I would say, okay, yeah, you got to get your group together, you got to make it happen, and it was very frustrating for groups due to the fact that John's missing in action. And so I wish I would have implemented that at the very start. So only the names of people that went through that assignment are on the cover sheet. And so it's worked out really, really well.
That's good. So speaking of things that work out really well, what do you perceive as the benefits of online group work for your students?
I think they become more of a community. They become more of a learning community online. I was told a long time ago, whatever you can do on ground, you can do online. And I was the biggest doubter of that. However, learning how conferencing works, how all those pieces happen, it's really true. I was teaching a class today. It was for a project management class. And students were given their midterm. I gave it to them because a faculty member was missing. And I gave it to them, and they said, well, let's use conferencing. We learned that in our classes. So that was great. So they were able to go right to conferencing. There were a couple of people that didn't know it, and then they self-teach each other. And again, I've had other faculty go, wow, I'm glad they took your class first because they know how to conference once they get into my class. Example, Rick's class. Mm-hmm. And so it really pays to be a benefit to that. So it really helps. It's a supportive online community.
What do you see as a barrier to implementing this for faculty that have never tried it before?
I take on that's the only thing you're going to learn that quarter. And don't do it for every assignment. Like even for my classes, I have 4 assignments throughout the quarter that are done as a team. So that way their tests, some of their case studies are separate. So not everything is relying on that team. I think just learning those few assignments, initiating that, and then if you want more involvement, then initiate more the next quarter. How would I clean it up the next quarter? I was told that you have to teach something 3 times. Once, figure it out. Second time, okay, I wish I would have done this, and then the third time you finally figure out what you want.
So are there other strategies that you feel are important to use that would help students with successful group formation? You talked about contracts, and you talked about maybe peer evaluation. Are there any other things that you use?
I have not done peer evaluation, and the only reason I haven't because I don't feel the group can go 2 ways. They're either going to carry the person or they're going to slam them. And I feel that as an instructor, that's what I'm there to do. Not to slam them, but I'm there to evaluate how they're doing. And I've had team leaders. Being a team leader in my class, there should be battle scars or battle points, I should say, for that. Because they take on a lot. They have to turn in the project. The rest of the team is depending on them to do that. Team leaders, I've had it to where some groups have gone where the team leader changes every week. They lose a lot of consistency there as far as, okay, this is what the paper looks like, this is what the assignment looks like, and that it has that consistency to it. And some groups have changed that out, and then their managers don't get to them and say, okay, what's our breakdown of what we're going to do for work this week? So it's been frustrating. So it's a gamut of everything. And some groups, I mean, I had a group that failed their midterm, and I said, okay, guess what? You get another opportunity to do it, but it has to be under these conditions. And they chose not to do it. They absolutely chose not to do it. They thought it's not worth doing. And I thought, oh my gosh, really? Come on, guys. And it's trying to support them like we do in any on-ground class. And they just chose not to do any of the assignment. Took their 8 points out of 30 and went with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts on online group work?
I would make sure my syllabus is very clear, building up to the assignments. I have it to where it's a check-off system. They check off that they know how to use the conferencing. They checked off that they've got their rules for their group. They've checked off that everybody's online at the same time. That seems to be the biggest struggle, is getting that group at the same time. And so that seems to be the biggest challenge. But that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.